we've got somebody on the line who could certainly break it all down and analyze how you're feeling and tell you how to feel about it.
Who might that be?
On. Well, why don't you bring him on and introduce our guest who we're going to have join us today and break down a little baseball and a little bit to the mental
You just
side.
said that I'm not lucid, but I'll take a shot at who I think is on. I believe that Don Carmen, former Philly and current counselor of sports psychology to ball players, is that who we have on the line?
That would be correct.
Yes.
I just play the guessing game with Jeff. I don't really tell him what's going on. I just, throw it to see what goes on with it. Don, thanks so much for giving a few minutes to join the show and talk about everything today.
Yeah, you got it. But no guessing games for me. I'm not good at them.
All right. Well,
Jeff's the only one who gives pop quizzes.
So. Exactly. So Don, we want to have you on because there's so much going on in the world of sports psychology, and I don't think it's ever been more important than it is now. But I did want to just start with a Philly story because I read it and I had never seen it before. And Jason and I have spent years interviewing the Phillies prospects as they come up and as they make it to the major leagues. And when I saw the story of your major league debut and your interaction with Darren Daulton, it really kind of touched me. And I was wondering if you could share it for our listeners, what that experience was and what Darren Daulton said to you.
I am on my very first game.
I believe what the story is that you came out for your first major league save, I think.
Well, that was one where, I'd been up for 3 weeks because we were, okay. I'd been up for 3 weeks, but I had not pitched in any games because the Phillies, it was 83, they were in a pennant chase, and when we were in Chicago, they clinched it. And we had 2 games left. John Denny started one and won his 19th game, I think it was, and they weren't going to let me mess that one up. I think we had 2 more after that, and we were playing the Pirates, and they called down and said, get Carmen up. And I thought it was just another day because it was 3-2 and going into the 9th inning. To get Carmen up, and I thought, they're just placating me like always, and I'm not going to the game with a save on the line. And so I get up and start flipping the ball, and then they call back and said he's in. I couldn't breathe. I just absolutely froze right there. And so I'm actually going in. I'm in a 3-2 ball game. There are 48,000 people at the ballpark. It's just, and they're all screaming and yelling. It's so loud because everybody's so excited going into the playoffs, right? And so I warm up. I don't remember the rest of my warm up, but I remember jogging in from right field in Veterans Stadium. And I always jog in all the way to the mound, but I couldn't make it. I guess I wasn't breathing. I couldn't breathe. I stopped right by Juan Samuel at second base, and I bent over trying to catch my breath at second base. And Sammy started laughing at me because he knew it was very nerve wracking, and they brought Darren in at the same time, and he had been my catcher for years, and all summer he was my catcher in Double-A, so he knew me really well, and so I'm standing. I walk up to the mound trying to catch my breath. I don't even remember what was said or whatever they handed me the ball. I don't remember my warm-up pitches at all. And I just remember standing on the mound and not moving and just frozen. I couldn't remember what to do. I was just standing there staring. It was in my stretch. And I was just staring at Dutch behind the plate. And I remember saying to myself, I don't know what to do. And then I said, well, you can't just stand there. Those were my thoughts, right? And the place was so loud. I remember feeling like the whole ground was shaking. And I realized later it was me that was shaking. And was standing on the mountain and said, well, you can't just stand here. You got to, I said, okay, well, just start moving and see what happens. That was my self-talk at that point. And I threw the first pitch, fastball down and away for strike one. And then threw the next one down and away, strike two, because that's where I lived in those days, down and away, right? So now I went from being scared to I'm going to strike out the first batter I ever face. Like it was, the light came on. It was that getting past that fear, that just, it wasn't just nervousness. This was like freezing fear. And I wound up not striking him out, and I wound up getting the save. I think it was a 3 up and 3 down inning. I had a 0-2 count on all 3 hitters and got a save in my first outing. And it was comforting because I knew Darren knew me, and I didn't have to think about what pitches to throw. I just was going to do whatever he said, which was kind of what my whole career with him turned out to be. So our interactions were always him. He was just a leader. He was a great leader, and it was just so reassuring to know that you knew you not only had a good baseball man behind there, but a good person who understood people and what makes them go. What you may have been referring to was a game that I was down 4-0 in the first inning, and Bonds had just hit a double off the wall, and Darren Dalton was catching. It's when I was in the rotation, and 4-0, and I haven't gotten anybody out yet. And Dutch started ambling back toward the mound, and after getting another ball, and he wouldn't throw it. And I just kept thinking, throw the ball, would you please just throw the ball? So, because I'm so mad, I can't even see. And he walked out to the mound, held the ball up over my glove, very slowly put it down into my glove. As he was doing it, he says, I don't know what you're doing out here, but it's not working. And he turned around and walked away, right? And what he did was made me, well, first of all, I got mad. I thought, I know it's not working. I'm the one over here backing up third. And so I then went off the back of the mound, still hot under the collar. And I said, so what are you doing? He said, well, you're throwing first pitch fastball, and they're jumping on every one of them. And it threw 17 breaking balls in a row, got out of the inning, and then wound up throwing 7 shutout innings from that point on, and lost 4-3. But the point of that is, you see, that he knew he had to engage my mind. You got to start thinking out here. You've got to change something. And sometimes he would just come out and jump on me about something. But it was just we had such a great relationship, and he knew me so well that he knew what to say when he came out. It was always great.
So as an older Don Carmen who now speaks to other athletes, do you often go back to that experience and other experiences that you had as the young Don Carmen to kind of figure out how to get people past that moment of fear, or that moment of concern?
Absolutely. It was one of the things that, and whether it be a moment like that or even the night before, because I can relate to them, like when you're struggling or if you've got something that's not working for you, it's the last thing you think about before you go to sleep, and it's the first thing that pops into your head and the next day. So what I do is I put them in those places. I want you to be there in your hotel room, because I tell them, I say, I know what you do. You stand in front of the mirror and work on your delivery. I know what you do. And you think about it all the time. And then you watch somebody else's delivery and you try something that they're doing. And when I show them that I know what they're going through, they learn to trust that I know what I'm talking about. But then I got to, the next step is to be able to give them coping skills for these things and to understand what to do when the anxiety hits, because it's coming, because it's part of what competitors deal with. It's the most prolific issue in all of professional baseball, and I imagine most sports, but definitely baseball.
You talk about athletes dealing with anxiety. Jeff and I are Ted Lasso fans. Recent episode, one of the characters got the yips, and I've heard you talk in other interviews about the yips. Like the coaches are even afraid to say the word. We've seen it happen with other people. We sort of saw something like that happen here in Philadelphia with Ben Simmons, who now doesn't want to go to the free throw line to the point where he's passing the ball up so he doesn't get fouled. How do you address a situation like that so that the athlete can get back to using the skills they have as opposed to thinking about what could go wrong when they try to use those skills?
The first thing that has to happen is I have to show them that I'm not afraid of it. So the tone of my voice will mean everything also, and how easily I discuss what they're going through. Because everybody else is, I mean, they're going to give them physical things, do this, and they've tried all of these. And I tell them, I know what you've tried. You've tried, maybe I'll talk, and I'm now talking about Ben, maybe you've tried tucking your elbow under a little more, or maybe put it out a little wider, or maybe throw a little more arc on it, or a little less. And you try all of these things, and maybe even you shuffle your feet, or anything like that, and none of them work. And they will work in practice, but they don't work under fire, because you're actually wishing it would fix itself. You're wishing it would go away. And then I let them understand. By that, they understand that I get it. And my guess is it's the last thing that he thinks about every day, and it's the first thing he thinks about in the morning. And he hopes it's not going to happen. And that hope of it not happening is debilitating.
So how do you get past it? I mean, look, I've been to practice. I've seen Ben Simmons shoot threes and free throws and do them with good form. But for whatever reason, he comes out onto the big stage and it goes away. And then when he misses that first one, as Jason pointed out, then he becomes so fearful of going to the line that it's impacting everything else that he does, to the point that he doesn't want to touch the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I would bring up too, is like, okay, and you're probably thinking game on the line, if it's close or whatever, they're trying to get back in the game. You're saying, please don't throw it to me, to the point where you almost want to come out of the game. So understanding that, and I'm kind of, it's kind of like that I'm drowning and you're describing the water, but I have to describe the water first. And then I let them know, I know we're going to get to the other side of this. I've dealt with this countless times, and we always get to the other side. The only time it doesn't work is if you don't do it. So what we're going to do is to go back and look at what you're now afraid of your own fear. The fear itself, or the anxiety itself, is not debilitating until you're afraid of it, until you're trying to avoid it, or until you're wishing it weren't there. This is a storm you are in. You got to hold the helm, as Cyrus would say, right? Anyone can hold the helm when the seas are calm. So what you got to do is hold the helm, but you don't know how to do that because you're hoping the storm will end. But it's only going to get bigger. And it feeds on itself. That anxiety and fear feeds on itself, and the more you fight it, the stronger it becomes. So what we're going to do is look at, what is your brain really doing? It was like that's an alarm system that goes off. In a simple way, it's that anxiety is an alarm system, and it's like, boom, I'm going to hear it, and now so you look around for, what is it that I'm supposed to look at, right? So I'm looking at what I have to shoot a free throw, and everybody in the nation knows that I can't do it. That I'm collapsing in this situation.
So
the fear.
we talk about everyone in the nation there, and the pressure. If I switch to another athlete on the world stage and how she handled things, Simone Biles, who basically it
Hmm.
seemed like the yips in terms of she called it the spins where she couldn't
Yeah.
locate where she was. How
Hmm.
she handled that mental health challenge, how she stepped away and came back. Can you talk about that and the pressure that was on her as a member of a team there and individually representing her country to be able to take that step back and face the challenges she had?
It was really hard for me to speak to that because I don't. I can say if you don't have the ability or someone that can help you deal with it, then you do have to step back. And that's a difficult thing. And she's not just a part of the USA team. She is the greatest of all time, and one of the few people that there's no argument, right, in any sport. She is the greatest. So she's her having to do that and step back. Yeah, that takes a lot of courage because she could just keep pounding away, which is what people do with the physical part of it. But if she's not prepared with the mental part, it's never going to change. And then, so with that, yes, stepping back if you don't have the coping skills for this kind of anxiety and dealing with it, then you have to back away from it. Now, the thing with Ben is I look at it and say, what I want first, I let them know, like, you know that you can shoot. You're actually really good at it. And I like to put it like a simple, like your brain works like I have a thinking brain and an athletic brain, right? And the athletic brain is kind of that lizard, the brain the one that you don't have to think about how you walk. You don't have to think about that because you learned how to do it and you do it without thinking. And when you're shooting and somebody's crawling all over you and you throw it up, you're not thinking about how to do it and you're great at it. But now I'm going to stand here with nobody on me and I have all this time, but I don't have a plan for the negative thoughts and the fear. And that's what we make a plan for. So what am I going to do with this? I'm not afraid of my fear. I'm not afraid of this storm. This is the beginning. That's the beginning.
Yeah, and it's amazing to hear you go through that process. And as somebody that's not a public figure has to deal with it, it's a struggle enough to face the fear and get over it. What is it like? I mean, you've been on that stage. You've been in front of tens of thousands of people, knowing millions of people are watching you in any given moment. Where we see with Naomi Osaka that she's encountered something similar, and what she's done is she's decided, okay, I'm going to take away some of those external factors by not doing press conferences and things like that. Is that an effective way for people to do it, as opposed to facing everything, to face the thing that's right in front of you and then to try to eliminate the other distractions?
I would not recommend it because what do I do if I still feel the anxiety? I haven't really dealt with it. I'm just trying to push it aside. I'm trying to get rid of anything that creates it. But this game itself of tennis that she's playing, and now every eye is on her, and and so what if this then starts to slide away? What's my new plan? Take away more and take away more. And in fact, I'm not dealing with what's really going on in my head. I'm actually trying to pretend that there is, I'm going to take these things away and hope that the anxiety goes away. Rather than I'm going to learn how to deal with, how do I respond to anxiety? And this is kind of one of the, it's the biggest factor in being able to go through this is learning how to deal with anxiety. And one of the things I've dealt with a lot of players, and I had a superstar who was making $30 million a year. Well, he was probably making 15 at that time. called me one night and said he passed out on deck from anxiety, right? And he went down on his knees, and then they got recovered enough to go to the plate and hope he didn't get hit. He said he couldn't see anything. The whole place was black. And I'd been working with him for a while with all the things that everybody talks about for working with anxiety. And those things work with small levels of anxiety, and they work really well on the sofa, but they don't work out there. I've found they don't. And so, I was, so, well, what happens? What would happen? And this, it just popped into my head, right? And this is what would happen if you, instead of trying to get rid of it, you took it up. Instead of, if I'm an 8 out of 10 in anxiety, what happens if I just, okay, let's just take it up. All right. And see what happens and play up here. Because my brain wants to be up here, let's do it. And then it's not accepting anxiety. It's knowing that it's coming and you're not afraid of it because I'm going to play up there. I can play at any level I want. It's when you fight it, it becomes debilitating. That's when it gets you. I'm not telling you you're not going to get anxious because you are. And that's part of the game too, but how do I deal with it? Now, interestingly, this player and his wife thank me every time. Every time I talk to them, it's, you have absolutely changed our lives, because now he's not anxious all day at home. He's not, and when the anxiety comes, there's no anger with it. It's just, let's take it up then. If my brain wants to be up here, let's take it up here. Because think about what your brain is doing when you are experiencing this anxiety. It's the fight or flight, right? The old fight or flight. So what your brain is doing is it's preparing you to be better at surviving, at fighting. So why then would it be debilitating? Your brain, why would it do something that's you would think would be the opposite, that would actually be debilitating? It's not. In fact, you actually, when you're there in that state, your reflexes are faster, you process information faster, and the studies show also that you see faster, which is, well, why would we fight it? And I want to let the player know at that point, it's part of what makes you great, and you're fighting it, and the fight is what's destroying you. So let's stop fighting it. So I did that with this player, and he wound up being superstar, he was already great, but
now I'm gonna have to go follow.
Changed his life.
Now I'm gonna have to go follow the superstars and see how they're doing. Tom, we could talk to you all day about this. We got to run to a break. But seriously, thanks so much for helping raise awareness and understanding of some of what athletes go through. We really appreciate the time.
You got it. All right.
Thank
Jason,
you so much.
Jeff, see you again.
Yep.